A few days before that, we started to notice these odd tracks. And the reason why I say odd is they were coming from low Earth orbit. But the odd thing is, Jimmy, every single one of these contacts, and if you counted them all up over the course of 10 days, about 100 contacts, separate contacts.
Wow.
The weird thing is, every single one of them, to the best of my memory and knowledge, disappeared off my radar in the exact same spot in the sky. All of a sudden we hear, oh my God, I'm engaged. And you got to remember who this guy is, right? For him to
Yeah.
speak like that on the radio was pretty astonishing. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Don't apologize.
I said, well, we have to speak out. We can't let Commander Fravor twist in the wind like this all by himself. It's not right. We were there. Now is the time for this to be said loud and clear. It's real. It is real.
The following is a conversation with Kevin Day. And now, in this episode, we have some ups and downs. It's pretty emotional, and I'll be honest and upfront about that at this point. Now, Kevin wears his heart on his sleeve. A super passionate guy, and this has clearly had an impact on him. When we got to the end of the interview, I asked, "Is he happy with me keeping everything in? Is there anything that he wanted me to cut out?" And he said, "No, absolutely not. It's the truth. It's honest." So I haven't edited except for one small part where a cat jumps in a bin. Um, but aside from that, you'll notice some weird graphics, which is a bit of an issue in Kevin's clothing. So a bit of fun there. We couldn't quite figure it out, and I didn't want to waste the time and the opportunity to speak to Kevin. Kevin is a retired US Navy Senior Chief Operations Specialist and radar expert, known for his involvement in the 2004 USS Nimitz Tic Tac UFO incident. At the time, he was part of the Nimitz Carrier Strike Group off the coast of Southern California, tasked with monitoring air traffic through advanced radar systems. Kevin and his team detected multiple anomalous high-speed objects descending from extreme altitudes at speeds and maneuvers beyond known technology. These objects were later visually confirmed by fighter jet pilots, including Commander David Fravor, who described the tic-tac shaped craft as maneuvering in ways that defied physics, such as stopping midair and accelerating instantaneously. Kevin has since spoken out publicly about the psychological impact the event had on him and his efforts to raise awareness about UAPs and their potential implications. His testimony has contributed significantly to the ongoing UFO discourse and recent government acknowledgement of UAP. So without further ado, the following is a conversation with Kevin Day. I'm interested in your sort of history and your past. I know that you're in the Navy, and I think that's often overlooked in a lot of these cases where people just think that you are just this case, and actually you've got a rich history prior to that. Are you able to just give me a little sort of a bit of an idea of where you came from in terms of your career and you up until this sort of incident, and then we'll come on to that in a bit.
I'm actually back in my hometown where I grew up. After I retired, I eventually found my way home. And there's a lot of reasons for that. But I went to high school in Albany, Oregon. I'm now in Cave Junction, Oregon, my hometown. I graduated from high school, went to community college, got my degree, but I had itchy feet. I was an exchange student right out of high school, went to Australia, and that whet my appetite. So I ended up joining the Navy. I wanted to see the world, and boy, did I. I served during all, I call them the Bush Wars. I served during all the Bush Wars, had 6 different seagoing commands, 18 and a half years of sea time sitting behind radars. I have operated off the San Diego coast for, with the exception of my time at Pearl Harbor for 6 years, in those same waters. Um, Hundreds of intercepts under my belt. I was a Top Gun air intercept controller, weapons tactic instructor. And, back in the day, Jimmy, I used to listen to Art Bell, Coast to Coast AM. Always had an open mind. But I have to tell you, I'd never seen anything. Everything was explainable. And my job was to explain things like that. If something flew, my job was to identify it, classify it, and based on what it was, make an appropriate response. And usually it was just to leave it alone, track and report. And of course, with the exception of November 2004, the strike group was getting ready to go on deployment. I had already gotten orders. I was going to go work for the Admiral over at Coronado Island, Commander Naval Air Forces Pacific. And this was my last underway on a ship ever in uniform, which is kind of weird after all that time. And my job, I was the designer for an air defense exercise, which was my bailiwick. And we had rehearsed for months, trained for months, and this was go time. I was a senior trainer. My job was to evaluate it and create a lessons learned report so the strike group could fine tune themselves and go on deployment and hopefully come back alive with nothing broken. So we were getting ready to kick off the exercise, but a few days before that, we started to notice these odd tracks. And the reason why I say odd is they were coming from low Earth orbit and coming into our radar horizon. And I'm just going to put out a number because it's already out there, 80,000 feet. And they came down in groups of 5 to 10 at a time, would sit up at altitude, and then all of a sudden they would drop down as a group down to between 20,000 and 28,000 feet off the coast of the island, Catalina Island. And they would just sit there. And then one by one, they would, individual objects would leave the larger group and they would transverse right through my operating area, Whiskey 291, which is right off the southwest coast of San Diego. And they would go about 100 knots, which was really strange because these things could go Mach, who knows? I mean, instantaneous flight capabilities, okay? And to this day, I don't know why they were going so slow. To catch our attention, who knows, right? But the odd thing is, Jimmy, every single one of these contacts, and if you counted them all up over the course of 10 days, about 100 contacts, separate contacts.
Wow.
The weird thing is, every single one of them, to the best of my memory and knowledge, disappeared off my radar in the exact same spot in the sky.
Wow.
Which was about 60 miles north of Guadalupe Island off the coast of Mexico. We ended up canceling the exercise because there was an obvious safety of flight concern, and I convinced the captain that we had to stop the exercise, and I also convinced him that when we did launch, I was going to take one of the aircraft, cancel the training, go to real-world operations, and intercept the closest object to identify these things and to determine what they were. I had searched high and low for an answer. All the documentation, I had made calls back to the beach. Our data was going back to the beach, so anyone interested could see it on the data links in case there was someone back on the beach messing with my exercise, and we just got confused. Because I have to tell you, Jimmy, if we were out there doing a strike group exercise, it is illegal for anyone else to layer another exercise on top of my live exercise without me knowing. Because what's going to happen? I'm going to have strange objects in my sky and I'm controlling aircraft. There's going to be a midair.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then someone's going to ask, what the hell? Why was I so incurious? Right. So to this moment, I'm upset. If that's the case, I'm pretty upset about it still. But I refuse to believe that because the people that I serve with just don't do shit like that. We've all trained and safety of flight is the number one concern. So I convinced Captain Smith to cancel the exercise. We intercepted the closest object with Fast Eagle 01 Commander Fravors flight. And I got to tell you, as soon as he got to the merge plot position, they were up about 20,000 feet. And we call it merge plot because on a two-dimensional radar display, you're seeing two pieces of symbology merge now. As soon as they got to that spot in the sky, this object, whatever the hell it was, dropped from 20,000 feet down to 50 feet above the level of the ocean, I found out the next day in 0.78 seconds,
Wow.
less than a second. No sonic
Crazy.
boom. And the reason why I know it was the same track is because we assign track numbers and symbology to everything that flies. And that way, very quickly, Jimmy could walk into the room and realize who's who in the zoo, right? The reason why I know it's the same contact or object in the sky is because the track number remains the same. The computer tracked it the whole time, right? So anyway, Commander Fravor, being the guy he is, Top Gun grad and the whole 9 yards, thousands of hours in his flight book, he went chasing it down. Of course, left his wingman up high, gets down to cold altitude with the thing, and all of a sudden it recognizes him. And I'll tell you why I say him. All right, this is an important uh, point about this. This thing, whatever it was, turns on him, and they get into a dogfight, if you will. And up in the overhead speaker in combat, all of a sudden we hear, "Oh my God! Oh my God! I'm engaged! I'm engaged!" And you got to remember who this guy is, right? For him to
Yeah.
speak like that on the radio was pretty astonishing, right? Broke protocol. We don't normally talk that way on the radio, right? And the next thing I hear on the radio, I was over by the front table. I was briefing the leadership, right? Well, what the hell was going on, or doing the best I could, right? And all of a sudden over the radio, I hear my air controller saying, "Sir, you're not going to believe this, but that thing is now at your cap station."
Wow.
Now you have to understand, Jimmy, if I'm the aircraft carrier, right, and the threat's coming from where you are, right, I'm going to have stations set out in front of me with no one combat air patrol stations to protect us from the inbound threat, right? And every one of these combat air patrol stations, we call them we call them cap stations for short. They are pre-assigned, pre-briefed. Everyone before they launch knows where they're going, what their mission is, when they're coming home, the whole 9 yards. Whatever that thing was, there was 8 of them at the time, if I remember correctly. Whatever that thing was went to his assigned cap station. Not close, precisely on it. Latitude, longitude, and assigned altitude.
That's just a crazy, crazy point of note, isn't it? I
Imagine being there, trying to absorb this, trying to make sense of it. After all the years at sea, I've been shot at, combat action veteran. Okay. Um, Gone most of my adult life. I didn't know what to think. Everyone's looking at me. Senior chief, what is this? I had no answers. Worse, worse. During the night, I went to get some rest, right? I was going to get up. I was going to write an after action report. I was thinking maybe if I slept on it, I would make some sense, right? I come up into Combat Information Center, CIC, or we call it Combat for short. Jump on the computer to get the information I needed to write the damn report, and all the information was gone. I call down to Computer Central. The supervisor comes running up. He says, "Senior Chief, I hope you're ready for this, but I have something to tell you." And what? He's like, "A helicopter came on board last night. Some guys came off in suits and took all my data. Not only that, they had me erase all the blank tapes." He said, "But I did save a piece for you." I said, What?" And that's how I know it was 0.78 seconds, because he saved the snippet of when that object, the first intercept, went down to 50 feet above the water. That's where that number comes from, right off the computer.
Yeah. God bless him for doing that.
Yeah, so I mean that alone took almost 15 minutes. You can see how we could speak for
Yeah,
hours,
yeah,
right?
no,
So
absolutely, absolutely. Okay,
yeah,
well, and look, thanks so much for sharing that. And it's clearly I can see from you and from other interviews that you've given in the past that it's like it's had an impact, like a significant impact on you. And I wonder, like, at what stage of this experience, this interaction, did you realize that this was just there's no chance that this could be something conventional from a foreign adversary, for example. Like, obviously, I don't know. I'm not in that environment. You're the professional. You're the expert. You're staring at these screens and the tech and the sensors on a daily basis. At
Right.
what point do you realize, hang on, this is just nothing that we can easily explain?
Well, I don't know if it was so much of a point as it was a process. What happened after the strike group returned to port? They went on deployment. They had to go back out after I had left the strike group and had to redo the training. By the way, how much did that cost? Right? If this was us against us, right? But the problem was we were left in a vacuum. I would try to explain to other people what had happened. I would try to describe and explain that we had a safety of flight problem, safety of flight issue. But the moment I didn't have a better word to call these things, so I called them UFOs. I didn't know what to call them. And as soon as I said that term, you should, the reactions that I got, people were looking at me, and I have to assume others that had the balls to speak out, like we had been smoking something, some chemical or something. They looked at us like we were crazy. And I say us because there's got to be other people that spoke too. I can't have been the only one, right?
Yeah.
And so it was a process. So I missed I was an E8 senior chief. I missed selection to make master chief because they only made one in the entire Navy when I was up. I had a good job offer with Department of Defense. So I punched out, went to Department of Defense. And when I got there, I tried again. We got a safety of flight issue. Same damn thing happened. So I got angry. Right. But I, instead of reacting angrily, I went home and I said, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to go back to school. I'm going to get my master's degree, which I did. But it turned out to be kind of boring for me, honestly. So I ended up writing a book, and I decided I was going to get this off my chest. So I wrote the whole damn thing from A to Z about the Tic Tac encounter, and I fictionalized it. So I didn't put anybody's name out there. I used the same names as the ships. I even said the word Tic Tacs, but I described it as a fictional story, and it took place in my hometown here, part of it, oddly enough. And I came and I got a hand press, and I made a book at home. I pressed it myself, and I published it in the Library of Congress in 2008. Got a Library of Control number and everything, just in case this story ever became public. My book would be smoking gun evidence that really did happen. Because there's that word Tic Tac.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
There's the word Fast Eagle. There's the word Princeton. There's the word Nimitz. I changed the date by a year, but I said 2005 because I was fictionalizing this thing. I didn't want to get anyone in trouble, right? And so when Commander Fravor did come out, I was down at the golf course. I was back in Cave Junction, and I was volunteering down there because the course was really struggling, and I love golf. Volunteering, and I was walking out with a I'm sorry.
It's okay. Don't apologize.
I came out with an order from the kitchen, and a video I hadn't seen in all those years was playing on CNN. The golf tournament had got interrupted with the MPEG snippet video I got my secret email all those years ago, and it was the object going off to the side of the scope. The Tic Tac encounter video, right? And so I was shocked. I'd forgotten all about this to the best I could. I still don't remember how I got home. I pick up the phone, I call Gary Voorhees, my buddy from the ship, and we were like, what the fuck are we gonna do? I said, well, we have to speak out. We can't let Commander Fravor twist in the wind like this all by himself. It's not right. We were there. I was his air controller. And so we did. We formed UAPX and we put together an expedition. And the idea was to go down to SoCal. And we had a bunch of other people got involved. Two quantum physicists, astrophysicists from New York University. We had David Mason, one of the world's leading technologists. Caroline Corey, who funded this whole thing, damn expedition, was like $500,000 directly out of her pocket. David Altman, another producer, our attorney, Hall, who's just passed away, rest in peace, sir. And that's where I met my wife, Kimberly. We were up on this roof. We had rented a house in Huntington Beach, facing Catalina Island, and we were getting ready to get clowned big time because we had all this gear set up on the roof. The neighbors are all looking at us like, what in the hell are they doing, right? UFO people, what the hell? The sheriff even came over and see what the hell we were doing, took off smiling, shaking his head, right? But guess what happened? They showed up.
Wow. Oh,
Yep. Right over Catalina Island that we detected and to the and these are Dr. Knus and Dr. Zydogus's words. They've done an academic report. I'm not sure where it is or the status of it. It's in academic review. You know how long that can take because you have reputations on the line and you have grant funding on the line and all that other stuff that you get involved with academia, right? But anyway, according to them, they say they appeared through a wormhole.
Jesus Christ.
Now, I was standing there, I was looking at some equipment, and this was when I first started getting involved with a lot of the stuff I'm involved with now because my interest is growing, right? And I was looking at what turned out to be a gamma ray detector, right? And there was two sharp spikes on it, and there were flat line and two back-to-back spikes. I'm like, what in the? And Matthew Zydogus, doctor, came over and said, I know, he says, I know you probably don't know what you're looking at, Kev, but that's two gamma ray spikes. And I looked at him, I said, what are the odds that you get two back to back like that? Because I knew what gamma rays were. He said, about 1,000,000 to 1. And then he turns over to me and he looks and he says, I have a question for you. I said, what? He says, do you think intention has anything to do with this phenomenon? Now, that's when the lights came on. I said, hell yeah. This is the second time when these objects knew my intentions. The first time was when they knew I was going to set the cap station and they knew I was going to be on this roof.
Wow.
And therefore, I came away with a huge message that intention itself is the missing link with all this. And I stewed on that, Jimmy, for a long time. And I finally came up with a way to think about it. And it goes back to a question. It's a binary question, okay? And I'm going to walk you through some binary questions. And there's, what, 4 of them? But the result of it is pretty powerful, okay? Now listen to this real quickly. The first question is, was the universe intentional? And the God's honest truth, I do not know. And if you know, please say so. So I have to assign it 50-50. Now, someone out there can say, nope, you're wrong, Kev. It's 49-51. Okay, bring it. Show me. I understand mathematics. Show me. Show me your equation. I can understand it. Okay. But so far that no one has done that. So 50-50. All right. So let's go with it sure looks smart, sure looks intentional to me. So I'm going to go with intentional. Okay. There leads to another question. What happened to the intender? Did the intender survive the Big Bang or even the steady state creation? Or did the intender of creation commit a cosmic suicide? Again, I don't know. So it's binary, 50-50. Let's say the intender of creation intended to survive, survives. The next question is active or benign? Is the intention active or is it benign? does it just there and never does anything ever? It's just benign, just kind of mocks and laughs at us. It's alive, but it mocks us, whatever. Or is it active? I'm going to go with it's active. Okay, well, now that leads a big question. We know there's four fundamental forces in the universe. We got gravity, we got strong nuclear, we got weak nuclear, and I have electromagnetism. I suggest to all of us there's actually five. There are five fundamental forces in the universe, and the most important one is intention, because intention itself created the other four during creation itself. And not only that, Jimmy, intention can be directly quantified and related to the fundamental forces. And with the help of AI, I have actually developed the mathematics for it.
Oh.
And it's serious stuff. My math can naturally be integrated with everything I've ever tried it on, including politics, including socioeconomic phenomenon, including astrophysics, including quantum physics. I've integrated with things like the Mandelbrot sets and other fractal sets, and it just naturally integrates. And I've seen it used recently. And basically the philosophy is intention is alive and well. And what really happens is micro intentions. And I'll use a social example because politics is so relevant right now, right? You have all these competing micro intentions, you got for and you got against, right? Well, sometimes those against micro intentions become so extreme that they can aggregate and pass a threshold where they produce a macro effect. And I call it the Bell-Drake threshold. I mean, and I borrowed these names off of existing mathematical sets and principles. And that's just an example of how I've been able to integrate this. And I'm not a mathematician, okay? I'm an amateur one now just because I've seen this stuff so often now that I can actually look at an equation and I may not be able to do the statistics, but I can certainly tell you what the equation describes. I can spot a fluid dynamics equation right off because I know what they look like. I know what they're supposed to do. I know what they do, right? As an example. And it's just from having looked at this stuff so much. And I'm willing to put, I'm on an email distribution with some of the top physicists on our planet. There's like over 120. And if I shared it with you, you would instantly recognize these people, okay? These are well-known folks. I did get pushback once, and I won't throw his name out there, from only one of them, until I reminded them, hey, my priority is the universe is intentional. All right. That's the given. All right. That's a given priority for my math that follows. And not only that, I was able to show him how it integrated with his own work. And after that was crickets.
Yeah.
My ideas are being accepted now. And how that all happened, you tell me. I do have theories about it. Essentially, a fifth fundamental law of the universe has been uncovered here. How I was able to deduce it, I don't know. And maybe someone else has done the work and I'm just replicating what's already been. I have no idea, right? But think about it like this. If attention is that powerful, what better proof could you think of than for intention to create the equations that describe it? Right?
Yeah,
It
I mean,
it it, it
it
was
makes
a
absolute
intention was
sense.
able to describe itself through a guy like me.
Mm,
On over 20 years it took from point A to point B. 20 years. Next month is 20 years. What? November 4th is what?
yeah.
20 years.
Well, it's just we keep coming back to synchronicities and just links and connections through the phenomenon or whatever this thing is. But it's clearly had an impact on you, and I know it's way more complex than positive or negative, but as a whole, I mean, what's your
My message,
yeah? I mean, is it a
my
positive? Is it
Jimmy,
a
my
negative? I know it's a
no, no,
human
no, 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 not negative at all. But I have hope. I have the opposite because I kind of look at myself as having taken it for the team, if you will, because if you encounter these things, it is going to change you. There's no if, ands, or buts about it. The only question is to what degree, okay? Some people they don't notice it as much, and other people are profoundly affected by this thing, right? Where synchronicities happen to them that are unexplainable, right? So that's my message. Now, if that happens to you and you weren't prepared for it, all of a sudden you were a famous doctor of some type, and all of a sudden you want to master the flute and start working in the orchestra. How do you think people around you are going to interpret that? They're going to look like you've been smoking crack. That's what happens to people. And if you don't know it's about to happen to you, it doesn't end well normally. People end up taking their life. People end up losing their kids. Can never see them again. This thing is, and through no fault of them, I don't think. I don't think so. What have they ever done to hurt us? They could. The, the technology that I saw, in a heartbeat, we could all be annihilated. There ain't damn thing we can do about it.
yeah.
The, so that's my message. Now is the time for this to be said loud and clear. It's real. It is real. And if and when you encounter them, do not be afraid. Go with it. If all of a sudden you have this overwhelming obsession to pick up a paintbrush, well, by God, do it. Or you get this overwhelming urge to volunteer, do it.
Kevin. I really appreciate you talking to me today, and it's so powerful. Your experience and what's come of your experience is just incredibly powerful, and I think I know has had an incredible impact, a
I,
positive
I do
impact.
I do have one more thing to add. Have you've heard of karma?
Yeah,
Now I can show you how my math integrates with karma. Differential equations, right? Really what karma is. Plus and minus has to equal zero, right? Differentials. All right. People that try to use this connection to gain wealth, to gain power, or anything like that end up not doing well. Do not try to do that. When you start to change, don't try to profit from this. They want us to learn. They're far more powerful than intelligent than us. All right. It's through the grace of God we're probably even alive. So do not mock this thing. Whatever it is, just be your best humanity. That's all it asks.
yeah. So they want us to evolve. They want us to evolve and improve.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's why I get so wrapped up in politics, because I see certain players out there that don't share my ideas, and it really pisses me off because I see what's happening to my country. And I think you know what I'm saying, and I don't even have to say it.
Yeah.
Angers me beyond belief.
So very toxic. Yeah.
Yes. And who
Absolutely.
knows what's going to happen? It could get real ugly over here. Let me tell you that.
Kevin, thank you so much, man. I really, really appreciate. I think we certainly, hopefully, we certainly need to speak again. In my opinion, I'd love to
Yeah.
to take this further. And there's, as you say, there's plenty to pick through. There, look, I just want to say, from my perspective, and I know that a lot of people that I've spoken to, we've got huge appreciation for people like you. And I'll just, as an example, in the early days of this subject, we were just desperate for people with credentials, with credibility, with the life experience, people that we can say, look, this guy knows what he's looking at. This guy knows what he's saying and what he's experiencing, what he's seeing. And to have people like yourself, people like Commander Fravor and others come forward, despite all of the stigma and the impact that that's likely to have on you and your character. And we don't talk about this enough, the whole character thing. Somebody's character and what they've done throughout their life is so important to them going forward for the rest of their life. And to then be sort of dismissed as just that UFO guy or whatever is just completely disregarding everything in their life, all of their achievements, all of their love and support that they've provided to their family, their friends and their colleagues. And so to step forward through that, knowing that that's a possibility, shows you, the incredible character that you've got. So genuinely, I really, really appreciate your service, not just to your country, but to this subject as well. Genuinely.
Jimmy, I appreciate that, but I think it's very important to say something about that. I think it's the actual whistleblowers. I'm just an observer. I think it's the actual whistleblowers who deserve most of the credit here. If you think about it, I mean, a whistleblower is a far different thing than just being an observer, which I'm only an observer.
Yeah.
So those people that are doing the whistleblowing, like Lou Elizondo and those kind of guys,
absolutely, yeah,
they are the true heroes in this, in my opinion. That's just my opinion.
I appreciate that, and that it's very sort of humble of you to say it, and I completely agree. But I don't think people can. I don't think people can underplay the impact that it's going to have with this stigma. It's so powerful, so strong, especially back then and even now. So even not as a whistleblower, it's still hugely appreciated from me, and I completely agree with regards to whistleblowers coming out now, and dangerous as well for them. So superb. Thank you so much, Kevin. I really, really appreciate it. It's been an absolute pleasure and honor.